Hello everyone, welcome to our channel Public Cloud Design Tips and Tricks. In this channel, we generally discuss about public cloud design problem statements and their related solution. Today, we are going to talk about bulkhead patterns. So the problem statement is how to isolate consumers and services from cascading failures. That means, in case of any microservice pattern, when you have multiple services and in one service is getting failed, then how to stop the cascading of the failures throughout the ecosystem. That is the aim. And to realize this, the solution is bulkhead patterns. Now, let's try to understand where exactly the word bulkhead came from. So you can see here, generally it came from the terminologies from the SIPs. So the SIPs generally has been divided into multiple bulkhead components, and each component is separated by a layer of bulkheads, so that if one component fails, in that case the water leakage will not affect all other components. That means the ship will not be affected entirely. So particularly that component will be affected by, and it will be resolved by the bulkhead, so that someone can go and fix that area so that the water will not be cascaded across the ship and it will not be affected. If you look into the biggest ship accident in the past, then Titanic was one of the biggest accident which has been caused by the bulkhead, a poor design of bulkheads. So yes, you have to design it properly when you want to stop the cascading of the failure. So what is bulkhead patterns? As per our definitions, so it is a design pattern which is tolerant of failures. That means when you have multiple failures, it will help you to tolerate it. It will help you to split or isolate application or intra components into set of pools or sections. So if one fails, then other fulfills the need. So that is the aim of the bulkhead pattern. Let's try to understand one example. Let you have a scenario where you are placing a request to service A, and service A is completely dependent on service B. And if in case service B is getting failed, in that case the service A will completely fail. But service A has also other components within it which can be also independently serve few of the request. So to segregate that, what you can do, you can partition service A into two parts. That means service A and service B. And in service A, the component which is connecting to service B, if service B fails, then particular that component will be affected. But the other component within service A still can continue to give the response to the respective consumer. So in that way, your provider is able to segregate the request, or the consumer is able to segregate the request based on the need. That is the aim or design of bulkhead pattern. Now the benefits. With bulkhead patterns, you will isolate consumers and services from cascading failure. That's the first point. So it can be consumer or service. You can stop cascading that. And then allows you to preserve some functionalities in the event of service failure. That means, as we understood in the previous diagram, if this part is getting failed, the other part can still, serving your need based on the demand. Then allow you to deploy services that offer a different quality of service for consuming application. That means you can think about, there are variety of customers who are quite critical customer, who are less critical customer. So for them you can design different type of infrastructure which will behave accordingly, so that in case of less critical customers or the solutions is being affected, then the critical solution will not be affected due to the failure of the less critical solution. You can think about, when you are designing multiple solution using different types of virtual machines, then you can allocate a less virtual machine having less CPU for the less critical customer, and a virtual machine with high CPU for the high critical customers. In that case, you will serve based on the need. Now, the practices that we generally recommend to follow during bulkhead design pattern is considering combining, bulkheads with retry, circuit breaker, and throttling pattern to provide more sophisticated fault handling. So you can use all these patterns to resolve this. When partitioning services into bulkheads, consider deploying them into separate virtual machines or containers or processes or services, or you can think about app services, you can think about container solution like AKS, EKS, or service mesh kind of concept. These are all can be utilized to realize a standard bulkhead patterns. Now, the services that communicate using asynchronous messages can be also isolated through different sets of queues. So you can use different types of queues or sets of queues to isolate the cascading of asynchronous services. Now, when to use the pattern? This is the most important part. So when you are trying to isolate resources used to consume a set of backend services, that means you have multiple set of backend services and you want to isolate or segregate the partitioning of that particular services into different need, especially if the application can provide some level of functionality even when one of the services is not responding. That means, as we understood in the previous diagram, if one component is not responding, then others should keep serving the need based on their current activities. You can think about thread pool concept and all. So if your component is interacting with your backend services, that means your database and all, and database write operation takes lots of time. In that case, it will keep consuming all the threads. So other services will be affected there. So you can segregate the thread pooling to the two components, like for service A this number of threads, for service B this number of threads. In that case, if service A is getting affected, then service B will keep serving the requirement. Then isolate critical consumers from standard consumers, as we understood. So you can isolate also based on the consumer type or based on the functionality, you can segregate it, and also protect the application from cascading the failures. So if you do that, then your application will be completely protected for cascading the failure. That means the concept that we understood, the ship will never be sink because you have segregated them with bulkheads. So these are all aim of bulkhead patterns. We have gathered all this information by following the Microsoft link, and also few AWS link also I have referred. I will share the links in the video comment description section. Please follow them. And also it is really a best practice when you want to design a resilient platform, a resilient solution, then bulkhead is a must solution or pattern which you definitely think about. Thanks a lot for watching the video. If you like the video, then don't forget to share it with your friends and colleagues. Thank you.